You know, I gotta say I've been pretty lucky. I have a job that allows me to travel all over the United States. And to give you an idea or a hint of what city I'm in, let's turn this way. And there we go, right there. Can you see it? It's the Washington Monument. Yeah, so I'm in Washington, D.C. I'll spend 3 or 4 days here in the basement of a hotel. And the only free time I'll get is after hours. Anywhere from 7 to 5 a.m. is my only free time, and you know I have to sleep in there. But I like to get out and walk, so there's a route that I do every time I come here that allows me to feel like at least I'm doing something in the city. Because you know the museums are all closed, and most of the sites and exhibits, well, they're locked up. But the cool thing about coming here at night is everything's lit up. And I love the way it's all lit up. I mean, I'm gonna turn here and look at that. Isn't that cool, that building? I don't know if you're familiar with it, but when I came here about 10 years ago, maybe longer, that building was overgrown, covered with trees and bushes, and you really had to look and find it. It's the old lockmaster's house, or the house that the guy lived in who controlled the locks, because when they first built Washington, D.C., there were actually canals through the whole place, and they moved a lot of stuff around by boat. This was all swampland, and boat was the easiest way to move things around, but they got rid of that sometimes like late 1800s, and this place was overgrown, and they just reopened it. And there's a sign out front during the day that says it'll soon be open for the public, so I'm really excited to come back here next year and check it out. But let's get on with this little walk, because I do not have much time tonight. I have a really early call, and if I do this walk right, I'll get myself about 6 hours of sleep, and I'll be able to work all day tomorrow. So let's get started. So here's my first stop along the way, the World War II Memorial. It's right across the street from the Washington Monument, and if I turn around, we can see the memorial. I'll get a better shot of it. You can see the light on my face here, because it's all lit up. And let me see if I can give you a good idea of what it looks like lit up. This thing is huge. It's also really loud. You probably hear the water and the plane, but every time I come here, no matter what time, there are people around. But you can see it just keeps wrapping around here, all the way over there to the other side. And what it is one side, I think it's that side, is the Pacific battlefront, and this side represents the Atlantic or the European front. And each one of these pillars here, they represent a state or a like a U.S. Commonwealth. They have like right here, this one, first one here is the, what is that, the Virgin Islands, followed by the Philippines and Puerto Rico. And I think on the other side we have Guam and Hawaii, which wasn't a state at the time, and a couple of others. So there's actually more than 50 pillars here. And then whenever you come here, you got to find the state where you're from. Well, during the war, that's where my family was from. This monument here, it's kind of off the beaten path. I mean, back there in the darkness, there's the reflecting pool where the Vietnam Memorial is, and the Korea Memorial, and then just over there is the World War II Memorial. And you know, those are pretty big memorials. A lot of people come there. They're very famous. I mean, you saw how big the World War II one was, and the Vietnam one is to represent a scar on the earth. And this one here, that's all it is, just this dome right here. And it was built not only to honor those who died in the Great War, World War I, but to honor all those who served. There's names, it's too dark to see it, but down there, all on the base of it, are names of about 25,000 people who fought in World War I from the Washington area. And it was built in 1937 on Armistice Day. And as I'm filming this, it's almost November 2018. And if anybody knows their history, you'll know that World War I, or the Great War, the war to end all wars ended November 11th, 1918. So it's almost 100 years ago that the war ended. And this monument here is kind of hidden off in the side. I mean, you have to know where it is. There is another World War I monument on the other side of the White House, but that honors pretty much just General Pershing. And I'm not going to take any credit away from the guy. He kept the American forces together, and he showed that the Americans can fight in a European war, and it was the first time we had ever done that. We say the Spanish-American War, but we never fought in Spain. We fought in the Philippines and we fought in Cuba, and we did really well. But that was in the Philippines and Cuba. This was the first time U.S. forces were in Europe fighting a European war, and we proved ourselves. So we had a lot to be proud of. And I think that it's a fitting monument for its time, but it's hidden. And I always love to come here and see it, and to honor those who fought in that war. As a matter of fact, Peter Jackson, he took a lot of the old black and white footage that you can find about it, and he colorized it, and he got actors to do the words that the people are saying on the film. And that should be coming out soon, and I really look forward to seeing that. Well, here I am at the Korean Memorial, and in the dark here, it's really hard to do this one justice. It starts out with this flag, or I should say, ends with the American flag, but it starts, the trail, it starts down there. And you can't really see it, it's hard to see it, but here there are these soldiers here, and they go all the way down there in the dark, and they kind of come up and they're walking up to this point here, to this guy. He's in the lead, and it goes back, and it represents, what this represents is the Marines and the different soldiers that fought in the Korean War. And it's hard to tell here, but each one of these soldiers is standing on a line that's in the ground, and these lines all along the way, they represent the latitude. 34th parallel, I believe, is the one that the Chinese and the Koreans came across, and then we had to push them back. And this is representing the soldiers going up north through Korea as they fought these battles up to the plant the American flag there. It's pretty great, and I wish coming out here at night. I love watching it, but on this phone, it's just really difficult to do it justice. But I recommend you come out here to see this memorial. It's really great. I came out here once and there was a Marine, and he noticed some of the details on the soldiers. So the park ranger was able to have a great conversation with him to give us details about it. And I really wish I could remember what they said. It was something to do with the boots and the helmets and the gear, and how it represented different types of soldiers mixed up in here. So come out sometime when there's a park ranger, and you'll find a lot more. But at night, it's just great to look at. You can come here and just take it in. And of course, not a trip to DC without a trip to the Lincoln Memorial. Yeah, on the wall over here and over here, there's copies of his speeches, the Gettysburg Address and his inaugural address, I think second inaugural address. And then behind him are some wise words. And this whole building, it's built to represent the time in which he lived. I believe there's a pillar out front to represent every state that was both in the Union and Confederacy at the time of the Civil War. Even the stairs going down, the number is supposed to represent something, but I don't know what it is. But when you walk up here, I mean, it's pretty imposing. And you can go out front and you can stand where Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech to that mass of humanity near the reflecting pool. It's a great sight, either during the day or at night, but I love coming here at night because, I mean, look at that. That's just awesome. Well, you can't see me unless somebody flashes their camera flash, but that's the Gettysburg Address right there. The whole address, that historical document on this one panel. Supposedly he wrote it on a napkin on a train, and they still have the napkin with his little scratches and stuff. And the guy that gave the speech before him gave like this 2.5 hour long speech, and Lincoln got up and said that. and it blew everybody away. So it just shows it's not about how long and how much you say, it's about what you say. Behind me there, you'll see the 3 soldiers at the Vietnam Memorial, and they're looking, you can see they're looking out, and what they're looking at, it's hard to see it in the dark, but there's the Vietnam Memorial back there with the names of those who fell in Vietnam. And you know, these guys are a pretty good representation. I took my dad here, and you know, it really hit him, and he was telling me all about what they were wearing and stuff. And they're also, there's a black man and a white man, and it represents the diversity in the Army at the time, because before that, especially in World War II, blacks and whites didn't serve together. They served in different units. But here you can see there's blacks and whites standing together, looking down on the names of the fallen. When you come here and see it, it's, you know, like most things here, it's pretty powerful. You can kind of see the wall here besides me. What you can't see are all the names etched in it. It starts really small back there with just one line with about 3 names, and that's supposed to represent the beginning of the war, or the 1950s, when the first American lives were lost. And then as we go down here, the wall gets bigger and bigger as it goes down there till it peaks, and then it goes off again as they bring the soldiers home. But the wall is just covered with names. I brought my dad here a number of years ago, and he looked at the wall. And the cool thing is, I don't know if you can see it, but the lights, you can see the reflections of the lights during the day. You can see your own reflection in the wall. It's a black stone, and it's designed to be like a scar in the earth. Again, we're doing this at night, so this really doesn't do it justice. But as I said, I brought my father here a couple of years ago, and I think it was one of the first times I saw him cry. And that's not to get all sappy or anything, you know. My father was, he was a carpenter, and he was a police officer, and he told Vietnam stories. He had a lot of good ones, and he had a lot of, it was the first time actually he started telling me about the action that he saw. But what he was crying about wasn't so much the action, it was that he couldn't remember the names of the people he served with. He remembered some of them by their nicknames and not by their full names. And that really upset him. And we had to sit down, and, you know, even thinking about it, you know, it brings tears to my eyes. So yeah, this is, you gotta come here, you gotta check it out. You gotta really see it to appreciate it. And seeing all these names etched in the wall, it really gives a sense of, you know, the cost of that war. You know, part of what I love about coming to places like this is not only, you know, seeing the monuments and honoring those who fought in our wars, and learning the history of our country, and see the names of those who were part of that history, and gave their full measure of devotion, as Lincoln said, for that history. But while I was down at the Vietnam Memorial, I kept hearing people talk about their grandparents, or talk about their fathers, and what they did, and the service that they did, and or tell a little anecdote about what they did during the war. Whether it be World War II, Korea, Vietnam. One particular one that sticks out that I just heard was talking about their father or grandfather building a crane. And you know, when I brought my father here, I learned a lot of stories and a lot about him and his service that he just simply never talked about before. I mean, I think it was something he just was not comfortable sharing with his kids, especially the times he was in battle. And you know, I never knew he was given a medal for saving somebody's life, and I learned that here, and I got to hear a lot of the tough stories, and that's what it brings out. You know, we honor the fallen, and war is not a great thing, but you know, that's part of remembering our history, our family, our fathers, is telling these stories, or telling their story, and hearing their stories, and keeping those stories alive. You know, both the good and the bad, because it made them who they are, it makes us who we are, and it makes, you know, the world what it is. You know, that's history. So yeah, I really love coming down here, and I really love listening and looking at everything. So normally I'm able to go and I'm able to hit the Roosevelt Memorial And then just beyond that is the one of the newest memorials here, which is the Martin Luther King Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Tonight I've been out for 2 hours, and that's a little bit longer because I've been shooting this, and like I said, I need to get back. So I'm gonna leave it here, and I think it's a good spot. I definitely recommend you get out at night if you come and visit Washington, D.C. During the day it's great, the museums are open, you get to see everything in the bright sunlight. The rangers are out telling their stories, but at night the whole place is just a completely different world, and the memorials just have a completely different sense to them. And I find
you'll see it starts
I love just coming and looking at those memorials at night all lit up. That's when I can truly sit and get a sense and a feeling for it. So I recommend it. So the next time you're in DC, check it out at night. And until then, remember to be safe and have a great trip.